The thunderous applause for the graduating class of Westmont University died instantly as my father's voice cut through the packed auditorium like a scalpel through flesh. "I need everyone to understand something about my son before he receives that diploma," Gregory Ashford announced, rising from his front row seat, his voice projecting with the same authority he used in boardroom presentations. 1,200 people, graduates, families, faculty, distinguished guests fell into stunned silence. Even the air conditioning seemed to quiet as every person turned to witness this unprecedented moment. "Ethan Ashford has been nothing but a disappointment to this family," my father continued, his tone measured and clinical. "He's failed at every opportunity, shown no ambition, no drive, no respect for the sacrifices made for his education. Frankly, I'm embarrassed to be associated with him." I stood frozen on the stage steps, my engineering degree halfway extended by Dean Rodriguez, whose face had gone completely pale. The massive graduation crowd stared in shocked silence as my father delivered what he clearly believed would be my ultimate humiliation. "I will no longer be enabling Ethan's mediocrity," Gregory declared, adjusting his expensive suit jacket. "It's time he learned what real accountability looks like without the safety net he's taken for granted his entire life." Behind him, my stepmother Victoria covered her face with trembling hands. But those weren't tears of shame for what Gregory was doing to me. They were tears of terror for what she knew I was about to do to both of them. Because while Gregory Ashford thought he was delivering the perfect public execution of his disappointing son, he had no idea what gift he'd just handed me. The perfect stage for his own destruction. I smiled. Not the broken, humiliated expression he expected, but a calm, confident smile that seemed to confuse him. His perfectly rehearsed speech hesitated for just a moment as our eyes met across the auditorium. He had no idea what he had just given me the perfect opportunity to do. If you're new to this channel, like this video and subscribe for your daily dose of chilling revenge tales where justice hits hard and betrayal never goes unpunished. 3 months later, Gregory Ashford had lost everything: his construction empire, his marriage, his reputation, and his freedom. The respected businessman and community pillar was serving the first year of an 8-year federal prison sentence for fraud and racketeering. But let me take you back to that moment when he made the biggest mistake of his life. My name is Ethan Ashford, and at 23, I should have been celebrating my mechanical engineering degree from one of the state's top programs. Instead, I was standing in my childhood bedroom, staring at documents that would destroy the man I'd spent my entire life trying to please. Gregory Ashford was everything our community admired in a successful businessman. CEO of Ashford Construction, the largest commercial building company in the state, city planning commissioner, and chairman of the local Economic Development Council. Our family estate was featured in Architectural Digest. His company built half the office buildings and shopping centers in our region. My stepmother Victoria played her role perfectly too. Art gallery owner, museum board member, host of charity fundraisers that raised millions for local nonprofits. Together, they were the power couple everyone envied and aspired to emulate. But their perfect son had always been a disappointment. "Ethan, adequate isn't acceptable in this family," Gregory would say during our monthly progress evaluations, his term for what normal families called father-son conversations. "The Ashford name carries weight in this community. You need to represent us with distinction." Nothing I accomplished was ever sufficient. Valedictorian in high school? You should have also been class president and team captain. Full academic scholarship to engineering school? You should have gotten into MIT or Stanford. Dean's List every semester? Why wasn't it summa cum laude? The criticism was constant, systematic, designed to keep me pursuing approval that never materialized. But it also made me observant, detail-oriented, and suspicious of perfect facades. My first glimpse behind Gregory's mask came 8 months before graduation. I was home for Thanksgiving break, helping organize his home office for tax season. The man who preached precision and accountability had files everywhere, contracts mixed with personal documents, and multiple sets of financial records that told completely different stories. "Dad, why do you have 3 different profit reports for the same quarter?" I asked, comparing documents. Gregory's calm expression flickered for just a moment. Different accounting standards for different purposes. Tax reporting, investor presentations, internal tracking, they all require different approaches. I was 8 months away from an engineering degree with a minor in business administration. What I was looking at wasn't different approaches, it was systematic fraud. But I said nothing. Not yet. Over the following weeks, I began paying attention to details I'd previously ignored. Late-night phone calls. Gregory ended abruptly when I walked into the room. Business meetings at restaurants that didn't appear on company expense reports. Construction projects that seemed to cost significantly more than industry standards. Most revealing was his relationship with his business partner, Raymond Kellner. They'd built Ashford Construction together over 15 years, but lately Raymond looked stressed every time I saw him. During Christmas dinner, Raymond kept checking his phone and making excuses to step outside for urgent calls. Everything stable with the company? I asked innocently over dessert. Just some regulatory compliance issues, Gregory replied smoothly. Nothing that can't be managed with proper strategy and planning. That phrase, regulatory compliance issues, became my first investigative thread. I started digging that night. Engineering teaches you to solve problems systematically. You identify variables, collect data, test hypotheses, and build solutions based on evidence. Everything I'd learned about systematic analysis suddenly became a weapon against my father's criminal enterprise. My breakthrough came from Gregory's home computer. He used the same password for everything, Ashford 1998, the year he founded the company. His email contained correspondence about construction projects that didn't exist in public records. Ray, the Henderson Mall project needs to be billed at full rates before month end, one email read. Move the equipment costs from the Miller site to cover the shortfall. We'll adjust the books next quarter. There was no Henderson Mall project. I'd been helping file Gregory's paperwork during summer breaks for 3 years. But there was a Miller site, a city-funded infrastructure project where Ashford Construction was the primary contractor. He was stealing from municipal construction contracts. Over the next 6 months, I built a comprehensive case while pretending to be the dutiful son preparing for graduation. During spring break, I volunteered to help with tax preparation, gaining access to company files. During Easter dinner, I installed screen capture software on Gregory's laptop while he carved the ham. The evidence was devastating. Gregory and Raymond had been running a sophisticated bid rigging and kickback scheme for over 5 years. They colluded with city officials to inflate construction costs on public projects, then split the overcharges through shell companies and offshore accounts. Every school, hospital, and government building they'd constructed had cost taxpayers millions more than necessary. But the most damning evidence revealed Gregory's method for maintaining control. City Planning Commissioner Gregory Ashford voted on construction contracts. Then CEO Gregory Ashford's company won those same contracts at inflated prices. He was literally stealing from the city budget while publicly advocating for fiscal responsibility. The recordings I captured revealed their system in chilling detail. The new high school project is coming up for bid next month. Gregory's voice came through clearly on my hidden recorder. Commissioner Morrison is getting suspicious about our win rate. We need to make sure he doesn't ask too many questions. What kind of assurance does he need? Raymond replied. The usual. His son's college tuition, his wife's consulting contract, maybe a family vacation. Nothing traceable, nothing obvious. They were bribing city officials with taxpayer money stolen from inflated construction costs. But I also uncovered something that explained Victoria's terror at graduation. Victoria's art gallery wasn't just a business, it was a money laundering operation. Gallery records showed she purchased expensive artwork with cash, then sold the pieces to anonymous buyers at massive profits. The cash came from Gregory's construction kickbacks, and the buyers were shell companies controlled by their criminal network. The perfect family I'd grown up in was built entirely on systematic theft from our own community. By April, I had enough evidence to destroy them both. Digital forensics, financial audits, recorded conversations, forged documents, bribery receipts, everything needed to prove racketeering and corruption charges. I'd even contacted a federal prosecutor discreetly, confirming their interest in the case. But I wasn't ready to use it yet. I needed the perfect moment, maximum impact, complete destruction of their carefully constructed public image. Gregory provided that moment when he decided to make my graduation about his disappointment in me. Graduation morning began with Gregory's typical performance of paternal criticism. Ethan, I hope you understand that this degree is just the beginning of proving yourself, he said over breakfast, straightening his tie with mechanical precision. You've had every advantage, every opportunity handed to you. Now you need to demonstrate you're worthy of the investment. The investment. As if paying for college was charity rather than parental responsibility. I understand completely, I replied, tucking my phone into my graduation folder alongside printed evidence I'd been carrying for weeks. The ceremony was held in Westmont's main arena, a magnificent venue that seated 1,200 people. Gregory and Victoria sat in the front row, reserved seats for distinguished guests, where the entire community could see the proud parents of the engineering graduate. Gregory had planned his moment carefully. When Dean Rodriguez began recognizing honor students, Gregory would have his opportunity to address a captive audience of the region's most influential people. What he didn't know was that I'd been anticipating this moment for months. Graduating with honors in mechanical engineering, Dean Rodriguez announced, "Please come forward for special recognition." I stood and began walking toward the stage, along with 12 other honor students. The applause was enthusiastic, warm. I could see my extended family in the audience, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, all beaming with pride at my achievement. That's when Gregory stood up. "Before my son receives this recognition," he announced, his voice carrying easily across the now silent arena, "I think everyone should understand what kind of person he really is." The silence was absolute. Dean Rodriguez looked stunned, clearly unprepared for this unprecedented interruption. I stopped walking and turned to face him, keeping my expression calm and attentive. "Ethan Ashford has been nothing but a disappointment to this family," Gregory continued, his voice steady and rehearsed. "He's failed at every opportunity, shown no ambition, no drive, no respect for the sacrifices made for his education." Gasps echoed throughout the arena. People turned to stare, phones started recording. This was exactly the kind of family drama that would dominate social media for weeks. "I will no longer be enabling Ethan's mediocrity," he declared. "It's time he learned what real accountability looks like without the safety net he's taken for granted his entire life." He paused, clearly expecting me to flee the stage in humiliation or beg for forgiveness. The entire arena waited for my response to this calculated public execution. Instead, I smiled and walked directly to the podium. "Thank you for that introduction, Gregory," I said, adjusting the microphone that Dean Rodriguez had abandoned. "Since we're discussing accountability and family truths, let me provide some context that I think everyone should hear." Gregory's confident expression began to falter. This wasn't in his script. "You see, my father is absolutely right about accountability," I continued, my voice carrying clearly through the sound system. "Someone in this family has been avoiding accountability for years. Someone has been stealing millions of dollars from this community while lecturing everyone else about responsibility and integrity." The explosion of whispers and shocked exclamations was immediate. Gregory tried to interrupt, but I held up the folder I'd been carrying. "Ladies and gentlemen," I announced, "you're looking at Gregory Ashford, respected businessman and city planning commissioner. What you don't know is that you're also looking at a man who has systematically stolen over $8 million from municipal construction contracts." The arena erupted in chaos, but I was just getting started. I had waited months for this moment and I was going to make every second count. "I know this sounds impossible," I said, raising my voice over the crowd. "The pillar of our community? The man who just humiliated his own son for lacking accountability? A criminal?" Gregory was trying to stand, to shout denials, but Raymond had grabbed his arm and was frantically whispering in his ear. Victoria had gone completely white and was fumbling in her purse, probably searching for anxiety medication. "But I have evidence," I continued, opening my folder. 6 months of engineering analysis and financial forensics showing exactly how Gregory Ashford and Raymond Kellner have systematically overcharged taxpayers for every major construction project in this city. I held up the first document, a comparative cost analysis with highlighted discrepancies. "The new Jefferson High School completed last year for $12.3 million, I announced. "According to industry standards and comparable projects, this school should have cost $8.7 million. Where did the extra $3.6 million go?" I pointed directly at Gregory, who had gone from confident to panicked in minutes. "It went into shell companies controlled by my father and his partner, then laundered through my stepmother's art gallery to fund their luxury lifestyle while our community struggles with education budget shortfalls." The crowd was on their feet now, some shouting questions, others recording frantically. Dean Rodriguez was trying to restore order, but this was beyond anyone's control. "Raymond Kellner," I called out, turning toward his location in the audience, "would you like to explain to everyone how you inflate equipment costs by 300% on city contracts? Or should I play the recorded conversation where you and my father discussed bribing Commissioner Morrison to approve your next fraudulent bid?" Raymond was already pushing toward the exit, but security had moved to block the doors. My anonymous tip to federal agents that morning about anticipated criminal flight risk had been very specific. "And Victoria," I continued, looking directly at my stepmother, "perhaps you'd like to explain to the museum board how their fundraising chairwoman has been laundering stolen construction money through fake art sales?" Victoria made a choking sound and buried her face in her hands. But I had saved the most devastating evidence for last. Gregory, you mentioned accountability and learning what real consequences look like, I said, pulling out my phone. Let me share a recording that demonstrates your teaching philosophy about public responsibility. I pressed play and Gregory's own voice filled the arena through the sound system. The new high school project is coming up for bid next month. Commissioner Morrison is getting suspicious about our win rate. We need to make sure he doesn't ask too many questions. What kind of assurance does he need? The usual. His son's college tuition, his wife's consulting contract, maybe a family vacation. Nothing traceable, nothing obvious. The silence that followed was complete. 1,200 people had just heard a city planning commissioner discuss bribing fellow officials with money stolen from taxpayers. For 5 years, I announced into that silence, my family has lived a lie built on systematic theft from this community. Every school, hospital, and government building constructed by Ashford Construction has cost millions more than necessary, with the overcharges flowing directly into my father's criminal enterprise. Gregory finally found his voice. Ethan, stop this immediately. You don't understand the complexities of municipal contracting. I understand perfectly, I replied, holding up my diploma. Mechanical engineering with a business minor, remember? I understand exactly how you've been inflating material costs, creating phantom subcontractors, and billing for work that was never performed. I walked to the edge of the stage looking directly at him. What I don't understand is how you could steal from schools and hospitals, then have the audacity to lecture me about accountability and community responsibility. The crowd was completely invested now. This wasn't just family drama, this was a criminal confession happening in real time. Federal agents are already in the building, I announced. They're reviewing the comprehensive evidence file I've compiled over the past 6 months. Bank records, forged contracts, recorded conversations, bribery receipts, everything needed to build federal RICO charges for racketeering and corruption. Gregory slumped forward as if someone had struck him in the chest. The transformation was complete, from confident authority figure to exposed criminal in less than 20 minutes. But I wasn't finished. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what real accountability looks like. The aftermath was swift and merciless. Federal agents had already surrounded the building based on my morning briefing about anticipated evidence presentation. FBI agent Torres and federal prosecutor Mason Wayne arrived within 15 minutes, just as the crowd was beginning to process what they'd witnessed. Gregory, Victoria, and Raymond were detained for questioning while I provided my complete evidence file to the authorities. 6 months of systematic documentation, organized into criminal charges, civil violations, and municipal fraud categories. Mr. Ashford, Agent Torres said after reviewing my materials, this is incredibly comprehensive investigative work. You've essentially built our entire prosecution for us. The social media explosion was immediate and devastating. #Ashford graduation became trending regionally within 2 hours. Videos of Gregory's attempted humiliation and my evidence presentation were shared thousands of times across platforms. Local news stations had crews at our house by evening. The city council called an emergency session to address Gregory's immediate removal from all municipal positions. The state contractor licensing board announced a full investigation of Ashford Construction. But the most devastating blow came from the community itself. We trusted that man to oversee our children's school construction, Councilwoman Adams told Channel 4 News, standing in front of Jefferson High School with construction documents in her hands. Every dollar he stole was supposed to go toward education, healthcare, and public safety. This is betrayal of the highest order. 19 other municipal officials came forward with similar statements. The FBI opened a full corruption investigation that expanded to 3 neighboring counties. Gregory's business empire collapsed overnight. Ashford Construction's assets were frozen, all contracts suspended, and employees placed under federal protection as potential witnesses. The company that had built his reputation was revealed as an elaborate criminal organization. Personal consequences were equally severe. Victoria filed for divorce within 10 days, claiming she was an unknowing victim of Gregory's schemes. Bank records showing her active role in money laundering quickly destroyed that defense. Their estate was seized as part of asset recovery for municipal fraud victims. The cars, artwork, investments, and properties purchased with stolen taxpayer money were all confiscated. Everything that had built their perfect image became evidence of criminal activity. Raymond attempted to negotiate a plea deal by revealing additional corruption in the state contracting system. His cooperation exposed 12 other construction companies and 47 municipal officials in the largest public corruption scandal in state history. The community that had once admired Gregory Ashford now saw him as a symbol of betrayal and greed. The man who had built his reputation on civic responsibility became the poster child for government corruption. Local newspapers, radio stations, and civic organizations began demanding transparency in all municipal contracting. The Gregory Ashford scandal triggered legislative reforms that revolutionized public construction oversight statewide. But perhaps the most satisfying consequence was deeply personal. 2 weeks after graduation, I received a handwritten letter from Mrs. Rodriguez, a retired teacher. Dear Ethan, I want you to know that your courage in exposing your father's crimes has restored my faith in young people's integrity. My pension fund invested in municipal bonds that your father's company defrauded. Your graduation speech saved countless retirees from further losses. Thank you for choosing community over family when it mattered most. That letter validated every difficult choice I'd made during my investigation. 9 months after graduation, the legal resolution was complete and devastating. Gregory Ashford was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison for racketeering, conspiracy, fraud, and bribery. The judge specifically cited his systematic betrayal of public trust while holding positions of authority as justification for the maximum sentence. Raymond Kellner received 6 years for his role in the conspiracy, plus civil penalties that ensured financial ruin for the rest of his life. Victoria avoided prison time by cooperating with prosecutors and providing evidence against money laundering networks, but she faced 5 years of probation and permanent prohibition from operating financial businesses. The asset recovery process returned approximately $5.2 million to municipal accounts, funding improvements to schools and hospitals that Gregory's crimes had damaged. While full restitution was impossible, the community saw tangible benefits from the justice process. For me, the consequences were entirely positive. The FBI offered me a position with their forensic accounting division, impressed by my investigation skills and systematic approach to evidence collection. My engineering professors used my case as a teaching example of ethical responsibility in professional practice. More importantly, I was finally free from the constant criticism and impossible expectations that had defined my relationship with Gregory. Without his controlling influence, I discovered interests and abilities I'd never been allowed to explore. I started a non-profit consulting firm helping municipalities identify and prevent construction fraud, using my experience to educate public officials about warning signs and prevention strategies. The organization received federal grants and expanded to serve 6 states within 18 months. My relationship with extended family improved dramatically once the truth was revealed. Aunts, uncles, and cousins who had seemed distant admitted they'd been uncomfortable with Gregory's treatment of me but hadn't known how to intervene. We always suspected something was wrong, my grandfather told me months later. Gregory was too controlling, too critical, too focused on appearances. But we never imagined he was stealing from the community. The most unexpected positive consequence was professional recognition. The National Society of Professional Engineers featured my case in their ethics training materials. Several universities invited me to speak about engineering responsibility and whistleblower protection. My graduation speech was incorporated into business ethics courses as an example of moral courage under pressure. A year after graduation, I was featured in Engineering Today magazine with the headline, "The Graduate Who Exposed an $8 million Municipal Fraud." But the real victory was personal peace. For the first time in my life, I could succeed without having my achievements minimized or criticized. I could make mistakes without lengthy lectures about family reputation. I could build relationships based on mutual respect rather than seeking approval from someone who would never give it. The apartment I rented with my consulting income was modest but comfortable. The furniture was practical but it was mine. The life I was building was authentic rather than performative. 8 months into his prison sentence, Gregory wrote me a letter. "Ethan, I hope someday you can understand that everything I did was to provide opportunities for our family. Prison has given me time to think about the choices I made and the harm I caused. I'm proud of the man you've become even though I can't take credit for it. You were always stronger than I realized." I never replied to that letter. Some apologies come too late, and some betrayals fundamentally change relationships. But as I read it in my small apartment, I realized something crucial. I no longer needed his approval or recognition. I didn't need his acknowledgement of my strength or his explanation of his crimes. I had found my own strength, built my own reputation, and created a life based on integrity rather than appearance. The graduation speech Gregory intended to humiliate me became the moment I truly graduated, not just from college, but from a lifetime of seeking validation from someone who was never worthy of the respect I'd given him. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's simply becoming everything they said you couldn't be. If this story resonated with you, it's because you understand that family authority should be earned through integrity, not demanded through intimidation. Too many people have experienced family members who use their position to control, criticize, and diminish others while hiding their own failures and crimes. Ethan's story shows us that documentation and systematic evidence collection are your best protection against family members who abuse their authority. When someone consistently undermines your confidence while maintaining a perfect public image, start keeping detailed records. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong, even if that person has community respect and influence. Most importantly, remember that you don't owe loyalty to people who consistently harm you, regardless of their relationship to you. Family should build you up, not tear you down. Authority should come from wisdom and integrity, not from position and intimidation. Have you ever experienced a family member who used public humiliation as a control mechanism? How did you handle discovering that someone you trusted was living a completely different life than their public image suggested? Share your experiences in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, like this video and subscribe for your daily dose of chilling revenge tales where justice hits hard and betrayal never goes unpunished. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the best education comes not from what they teach you, but from what they force you to discover on your own.